ReefDudes is sponsored by Brightwell Aquatics and Bulk Reef Supply.
Today we're checking out Savy's 135-gallon reef tank. What's going on, guys? Devin from ReefDudes. Today we are checking out this beautiful custom reef tank. How's it going today?
Really good. Thanks for coming, Devin.
Excellent. Thanks for having me. So first of all, this is a custom tank built by Concept Aquariums.
Yep.
And about how big is this tank?
So it's roughly a 135-gallon display with circulating volume. About 150 is what we use for calculating dosing. It's 5 feet long. We wanted it a little bit deeper, so it's 26 inches deep and a bit more shallow at 20, similar to your old tank, Devin.
Yeah, beautiful. Now, love the lights above it too. So it looks like we have, are these AI lights or which brand are these?
They're AIs. The two on the outside are the 26, I guess. Yeah. They had come as my with the original package with the Red Sea 250 that I had gotten from AJ. And then we ended up, when we put this tank together, I ended up bringing those across and then adding a 32 in the middle.
Nice, that's excellent. The pipe look on it looks really good as well.
Yeah, thanks. We looked at, kind of wanted to do something a little different, but really wanted it to still fit with the look and feel of the house. And you've been around, there's quite a few of those sort of pipe accents in this house. Yeah. So I built a box and wired everything through the wall. On the other side is the garage, and we had the electrician come in and run a dedicated circuit for this. And then I just made a French cleat for the box and put in the plumber's pipe and wired everything through. So it looks good now. Maybe a little difficult to rerun new lights eventually, but for now it looks great.
Yeah, it looks awesome. Now the stand, another thing that stands out to me, you have a really nice looking stand. So this is a custom stand?
Yeah, so this is a custom stand. So when we first moved here, my wife and I, we had the Red Sea 250 and yeah. We really wanted to, it was a little small. And thankfully my wife is really invested in our babies. And so she was agreeable to us getting a bigger tank. And so at that time we were looking at some, Red Sea equivalents like a 650 or 500. And they were great tanks, but we had to sacrifice a few things size-wise. So we decided to go with the custom tank. And at that time I was gonna do an 80-20 stand. And then my dad, who is a mill worker, he has built so many things over the years for me. He took a look at it and took the designs, talked to an engineer, and then he ended up building the stand. So it's nice. A custom stand. It's a waterfall stand, so it drops off on this side. It's built with 2 1/4 inch marine grade plywood on 3 gables, as well as it's got a gable across the back that bolts into the studs in the wall and then nice. Sits over top of the foundation wall. We had an engineer come in, Megan, who I'd met actually after watching some of your videos, Devin, nice. Who came and did all the work ahead of time to make sure that this spot, we're on the 2nd floor, would support it. So yeah, and then my dad, he said, no, there's no way you're building something, I'm gonna build it for you. So he ended up building me this custom stand, which now is bittersweet. He passed away last year, and after all the years, this is the last thing he's built me. And so it's, it's really cool. This tank holds a lot more importance to me now because I think of him a lot when I see it. So it's really a nice memory for me to see it and see this beautiful tank sitting on top of it.
Well, he did a fantastic job.
Thank you.
It really is a beautiful setup, but your rock work, everything in there, like everything looks great. You got tons of flow. Really nice shimmer actually from the lights. I actually really like the AI shimmer. I've never used the AIs like other than the Prime, but it has a really nice aesthetic to it.
Yeah, I've never known any other lights. I got into the hobby, and sort of really did a lot of research and watched a lot of videos, but until you see it real time, it's sort of hard to really tell. And I've been really fortunate to have a lot of mentors and friends in the hobby locally. And one of my closest friends, Mike Barillero, who we've done the tank review with his 500, I went to see his tank so many times and it was just stunning, and he has been a great help to me, and he had another brand of light which were awesome, and then it just so happened I fell into these when I got my tank set up because they came as part of it, and I just fell in love with them. I like the shimmer. I don't mind the shadows in the tank. For me, I know certain people like a bit more of a solid washed out look with no shadows. I actually prefer the shadows. To me it just feels more like I would expect to see in the reef, and so I don't mind it, and I do like it. Yeah.
Gives it more of a dynamic look in a way.
A little bit, yeah. So, and then the rock structure, I spent a lot of time on that. I ended up, I've got a pool table downstairs with lights above it, and I ended up seconding the table and putting a 4x8 sheet of plywood on top, and then building a PVC frame, and then I ended up playing with this sort of negative scape style, which was really what I wanted to see for quite a while. And then we pulled over some rock from the old tank, like the Zoa rock, which is one of the Carib Sea reef rock.
Yeah, that's the nice
the cave,
big Sunny D monster in the middle.
So with all, exactly. And then some of the other pieces. And then we built the rest out of, and used PVC, and I just built it with Marco and spent a lot of time on that, and then got it cured and brought over.
That's awesome. How long did you spend making the rockscape?
At least 3 or 4 months, like a long time. It's and even now I was like, I wish I'd done some things a little differently, but generally I've been really happy with it. I looked at it pretty much every night. I'd sit down there with a glass of wine and take my wife down there, and we'd go and stare at it and and kind of get an idea of what it would look like. So, and we're pretty happy.
I appreciate I'm not the only crazy one that spends playing with rocks.
No, I watched your video of you gluing everything up on the outside. I don't know how many times I watched that one, and then the BRS one and others. Yeah. So I could kind of do it for a living. Actually, I loved it.
Big kid Lego. That's what I call
yes,
it.
Exactly.
That's awesome. So flow-wise in here, it looks like you have a couple Neros. I see 2, although I spotted 3 controllers earlier. So. Yeah,
so on the back side, on the long side by the overflow, there's 2 Nero 5s. And then I added a Nero 3 on this edge on the front, because I just didn't seem to have enough flow on this end. Yeah. I am planning, I think, to add another one. Generally, things seem pretty happy, but as things are really growing quickly now, and I'm worried about some dead spots. So I think I'll probably add another one. I was thinking about a gyre on this end. I just really like the clean end as much as I love the gyre. So I may still add a gyre, but maybe put it in a vertical configuration in the back.
If I was to add one, I would add it vertically in the corner, so it kind of blows its way and wraps around the tank.
That's a great idea. Yeah, something like that to keep that sort of full movement. I do have my Core 20 running for return, and so I've kind of dialed it down, so I don't think it adds that much flow, but everything seems to be moving fairly well. I just sort of gauge the pull-up movement on my SBS, and it is a little quieter on this end, but that's on the far end, and this is why I've put the hammers down here, because they seem to be happier, and the Scully and stuff.
You could always add another little Nero 3 on the back wall or something as well.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. There's lots of room for it.
So speaking of look of under the hood.
Yeah, please.
Everything lights up. I like the automation there.
Yeah, ended up putting one of those reed switches on with magnetic switch, and I got all my storage. I decided to not put all my controls in this cabinet. I just wanted room for sort of all my additives and all those sort of things that you need day to day, testing equipment. And then, so I did that in this cabinet, and then obviously, fired in the sump and all the plumbing and everything under here. This is a ReefDudes special sump with filter roller, which I absolutely love. I don't think I would ever steer away from that.
Would you ever use socks again after having a filter roller?
Not a chance, I don't think. I mean, I never say never, but very unlikely. Let's go with that.
Now, one thing I really love is all the cabinet sliders that are in here. So inside of here, how you can slide everything out, makes it real easy to top off, easy for maintenance. Yeah,
I mean, that was super easy. You just grab a couple of those sort of cupboard cabinet rails and you just put them in a vertical position. And I just built that out of MDF and then used some water resistant paint, enamel paint on it, and then just put my, dosing unit. It makes it easier for filling, and it makes it easier for cleaning behind the sump, and it makes it easier for pulling that beast of a UV out.
Yeah, that is a big UV. How many watts is that guy?
I think it's 457 or 47 or something like that. Yeah, it's actually, oddly enough, the next size bigger is actually a smaller tube.
Yeah.
But this was what was available. My good friend Kai ended up getting that for me because I had an outbreak of ick about 6 months ago, and I was really struggling with that, and I knew that potentially UV could help me. I'd used one before, and I just hadn't had one on this new tank, and I kind of wished I had, and it really, I believe, helped very quickly, and I've run it around the clock ever since. I'm a true believer in UV, and the water quality really changed and got better right away. So I like it, and yeah, it's become a kind of a mainstay for me.
Crystal clear water, that part's definitely working well.
Yeah, I mean, it's maybe not as good as ozone, but
it's pretty darn close though.
Or ozone and UV together.
Pretty dang close. But between the filter roller and the UV though, that water just sparkles.
Yeah, I mean, I blow the sand up like about once a week. I do a major snow globe thing where I get a long tube with a turkey baster, and I blow the sand about 2 hours before I do my water change, and I just let the filter roller and the skimmer take the bulk of that out. And it's amazing how quickly the water gets clear with that filter roller.
Yeah. How often do your rolls last you?
2 months.
2 months?
Yeah.
That's pretty similar.
Yeah, 2 months. So
Excellent.
It's almost due for a change now.
Yeah. Now, another interesting little bit here. You have a tube coming in down here and a pump.
Yep.
Which goes to almost like a little spray bar going through media and then your refugium.
Yeah, so this is the eShop's, I forget what it's called, split design. So it diverts part of the flow through a refugium, and the rest goes under the refugium, which is covered with that vinyl underneath there, into the skimmer section return. And so a part of the flow is diverted, and I think it's meant to slow the flow down through the refugium. And so, but what I was finding is that the flow was a little too slow through the refugium. I was having some nutrient issues early, and it just didn't seem to be churning or moving the Chaeto much. So what I did is next to the skimmer, I put a small CHA1 pump in, and I've set it through to my apex. And then I made basically a spray bar out of PVC with caps, and I've drilled a whole bunch of small holes, and it's sort of like a diffuser plate at the bottom of the refugium. And then I've put some pond matrix, which is sitting there, and then my Chaeto, and it really has made a great difference for me. It's worked really well.
Oh, that's awesome. Nice, easy fix.
It worked quite well, yeah.
Yep. So your stand is super duper clean. So where are you hiding all your actual gear?
Well, that's a good question. The gear is actually hid around the corner. I seconded a cupboard so that I could put all my gear in one spot that was easy to get to. My last stand, I did a really sort of cool design where it looked awesome, but I found that actual access was a challenge. And for this one, actually this idea came a little bit from was it Curtis that you saw with the big the tank in his workplace? It was like a huge peninsula, and he had this wonderful side cabinet with everything in it, and I just fell in love with that because I was like, that's to me is very useful. And now his is a lot more polished. But to me, this has become really useful. It's easy to walk in, unplug something. I can walk somebody else through it. It just makes it a lot easier to stand up and sort of walk through and figure out where things are.
Even your labeling, if you had to explain to somebody, everything is labeled, this number has this plugged in.
Yep.
That makes it extremely easy.
Yep. KISS principle.
Exactly. Like, I give you props on this one because very few people I've seen have it this well mapped out and kind of documented.
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot of things I do at work are like this, and so I think that when you carry over the things that make you good at what you do at your regular job, and you can kind of pull them across to your hobbies, I think you're going to be more successful for sure.
Another one else I like, got the lovely slider for refilling your ATO, again, making life easy.
Yep, I haven't moved to the sort of linking it to my water change station. I'm not super comfortable with that just yet, but maybe one day. But yeah, it's pretty easy. It's close to my water change station. So
where are you hiding the water change station?
That would be through here. So in the garage.
Yep.
Yep. So I've got the two brutes. I just run RODI unit is on the wall here, and I fill the top. It runs around from there.
Perfect.
Yep. And I just run it all the way up and over, fill that up, and then I've set up the piping where I've set up a guide on the side which shows me how much water is actually in the container. And then I just dump it into the bottom, add my salt, and I got a little pump in there that gets it moving, and then I use a Python to do my water changes, which I do pretty religiously on every Sunday when I can.
Yep.
It's kind of a thing that Mike taught me long ago, just to stay consistent with what you do, and it seems to work for me. And then I just reverse the Python, plug it into this pump, and pump it back into the
perfect
tank. So Yeah, and then all the lighting is in here. This is where it comes through from the light bar.
So that's the back side of the...
That's the back side. It just comes through one of those grommets, and it's all plugged into its separate circuit on here.
Well, it hides everything and keeps everything looking super crisp and clean.
Yeah, exactly.
Which I love.
It's worked out. Yeah, it's worked out. You know how it is, like when you've done something, you're always like, certain things you might do a little differently, but I think every time you set up a tank, you're going to do that, right?
Yeah.
You learn something from it.
So on that note, is there anything that you would change on the setup if you were to do it again?
That's a really good question. Maybe a little bigger tank.
Yeah.
I actually think the tank is the perfect size for the space. I think we would always want something bigger. I like the light bar, but I'm also a little more stressed about adding lights. I'm less likely to because of how much work it is. I'm worried about taking it down. I am going to build something like a sheet of plywood with a yoga mat on it so I can gently put it on top of the tank. The tank has a Euro brace around it, which I really like. And so I would put something on top which would allow then for me to work on the light.
Yeah.
But I think maybe I would go about it differently. We have considered whether or not we would have closed this whole area in with a full canopy. But actually now that we've done it, I don't think so. But one of the things I may have done differently, I really liked your bar setup with your lights and putting that over the tank with the actual light power going through the wall to the cabinet where everything was contained in there. I think possibly that. Other than that, no. I mean, you're always sort of looking at a few little different things. I think the overflow I probably would have made blacked out because you do see the pipe on it. But I honestly don't see it anymore. And as sort of the coralline's growing on it, I don't really notice it so much.
Even if it did bug you a little bit, you could just replace with black PVC.
Yeah.
Super quick fix. Then
exactly.
You wouldn't really, it would almost look blacked out, right? Because
only
because it's white. That's the only reason
you
even notice it.
Yeah, exactly. So like I said, or just wait for the corals to get so big that you don't see it anymore.
That works too.
Yeah, exactly.
No.
So yeah, and then it's handling the nutrients well. Rarely getting into issues with it with the current fish load. So I don't think we're any plans to add anything more. I think everyone's getting bigger, and quite honestly, eventually we might have to rehome a few of the bigger fish, which would be a sad day for me and my wife.
Yeah.
But for now, everyone seems happy, and just kind of moving along.
Yeah, once you've had fish for a long time, you definitely do get attached to them, so that is always hard.
Yeah, we unfortunately have, well, not fortunately or unfortunately, we've named them all. So they are all named. They, every night my wife and I sit here after dinner, we grab our chairs, we share a glass of wine, and we feed them, and we just sit here and watch them. And so actually that's the next project. I think I'm going to make a bench that on wheels that I could just wheel over in front of the tank.
Oh, nice.
So at night, so I'll put it over here by the front door, and then we'll just flip it around and sit in front of the door. So
wine and dine with the fishy event.
Exactly.
That's awesome. I love it. So it's pretty cool that she's into it as well. And I think that goes a long way for kind of success in the hobby as well as getting your spouse into it.
Yeah, I think we talked about this earlier, Devin. I think, I'm no pro, but my pro tip would be if you can get your significant other engaged and interested, it makes it a lot easier to, you'll have an additional set of eyes on the tank, and she sees things way before I do. And then it's a little easier to maybe justify some of those purchases.
Yeah, definitely. If you can get your spouse into it, I think that's an amazing way to go.
Yeah, no, Jennifer's been great. She does all our testing, and she really guides our sort of dosing, how we're going to dose. She really understands that even better than I do. So it's really great to have that, and we kind of work on it together, which is kind of cool.
That's awesome. Now, do you have any favorite fish? Since I know you've named them all.
I'm going to probably say the fox-face Foxy, aptly named.
Foxy the fox-face.
She's been with us a long time. She's and then also we have a pajama cardinal in the back there. His name is Colonel.
Colonel?
And he's he's our oldest fish, and he's survived moves. He is just, how they are. They just float in the tank. They don't cause any trouble.
Yep.
He's just a calming influence in the tank, and I just really appreciate that. I love him.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So we got a warm spot for all of them for sure.
Yep. Any favorite corals?
Yeah, the coral's interesting. I don't know if I'm more of a fish guy or coral. I'm sort of in love with both. A few, I got the trachea out front is from my good friend Mike. that I mentioned before, when he ended up, getting out of the hobby for a while, he contacted me early and said, do you want to come up and take a look? And I was glad he did, because I like I said, I fell in love with his tank early, and he was such a good friend and mentor to me, and so I love that piece. I love that meat coral and his Ghani. So those, the red Ghani and the meat coral are from him, and
Nice.
so I really love those. As well as Brody passed along to me the Scully, which needed a little bit of love, but he trusted me enough to look after it, and it's really started to really flourish, and so it's cool. I like those corals that you sort of connect to, because you've sort of got that connection to, right? Like that Zoa rock, those Zoas are all a packet like that you had actually gotten for me.
Yeah.
So it's single polyp heads, and now it's that huge rock, and so I remember popping over to your house, grabbing those. So to me, it's those connections, and then Yifang, all the SPS. So yeah, I have a few favorites, but ultimately they're all my favorite because of the story that's behind them.
It's really cool when you have a story kind of attached to it. Like I know even just certain corals I've gotten just traveling different shows and events, and you're like, oh, that one came from Vegas, and that one was in LA at this event, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, I don't know the name of half of them, but
yeah,
but I know who gave them to me.
Yeah, that's all that matters at the end of the day.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Well, it's definitely a beautiful tank, and thank you so much for sharing it with us.
Thank you, and thank you for coming. Really appreciate it.